Well, good morning, everybody. This is the referendum that no one thought was going to happen. It's the referendum that the Prime Minister hoped he would never have to deliver. And it's the referendum that UKIP have spent 20 years fighting for. And it's worth reminding ourselves what a big change in the political scene there's been, because in 2012, Mr. Cameron repeatedly, and in fact in very adamant terms, said there would be no referendum. He said that he believed in our membership of the European Union, so there was to be no debate and we could frankly all go hang. But it was the rise of UKIP that of course forced his hand. They decided they had to shoot the UKIP fox. I've heard that phrase so many times it must be extinct by now, I would have thought. But Labour of course refused to meet this challenge, and they paid a very heavy price for it. Nobody could fail to notice that in the Midlands and the north of England, the Conservatives won a number of seats from Labour that would not have happened without the effect that UKIP had on the Labour Party. So that we can say this morning with absolute and total confidence that without UKIP there would be no referendum. And we're very pleased and very proud as a party we've made that happen. Now we're told the referendum will happen by the end of 2017, but I suspect it's going to be very much earlier than that. Who knows? It could even be as early as March or April next year. But of course the referendum will follow the renegotiation. And I put it to you this morning that actually it is that renegotiation that is the key. For the moment, the Prime Minister David Cameron is being allowed to set his own agenda. He goes virtually unchallenged in the Westminster Village. He says the renegotiation is about making sure that migrants don't get immediate access to benefits. On a really good day, he suggests that he might try and get one or two employment powers back from Brussels, and that's it. To say that it's modest would be an understatement. Gone already is any thought of treaty change. That which the Foreign Secretary was saying as recently as early June was absolutely necessary. Gone is any attempt to control the free movement of people, because he knows he doesn't. Question that as this campaign begins, there's no doubt at all that the yes side are in the lead. And my goodness me, aren't the yes side busy? Aren't they active? They're campaigning at full throttle. Never a day goes by without Sir Richard Branson appearing on a television programme, without the ubiquitous Ken Clarke, who now appears to be more politically active than he's been at any time in the last 40 years. Tony Blair pops up every now and again, obviously keener to slag off his own party, but making it clear that Britain absolutely must stay in the European Union. Oh, and I nearly forgot President Obama, as regularly as he can, saying why Britain must stay part of the EU. We've even had the vice-chancellors of 20 universities, without, I think, much reference to their own boards, telling us that unless we're given some of our own money back, academia in Britain will crash. And of course, the CBI and their friends in the corporate world, the people who over the last 100 years economically have been wrong about absolutely everything. But be in no doubt that if we vote yes in this referendum, it really means yes. It'll be a vote for deeper political union. It'll be a vote for more EU legislation. It'll be a vote for an extension of EU foreign policy. And if the yes men get their way, it'll be a vote that brings Britain closer to joining the euro. You don't believe me? Just listen to Richard Branson on the Mar programme. Just listen to Tony Blair the other day. They're all coming out with the line that if the economic conditions are right, they would like us to join the euro. And I think one of the big mistakes in the British debate is there seems to be this thought that being a member of the EU is like a sort of never-ending series of lines in the sand. And some in the Yes campaign may pretend, well, if we vote yes, our relationship will stay as it is. But it won't. And to say that is to fundamentally misunderstand what the EU is. It's a process. Every single day, every single directive, every single regulation adds to the power of Brussels, adds to the acquis communautaire, and takes away from Britain just a little bit more of our ability to govern ourselves. I think the risk of actually staying in the European Union is now quite great, because we risk being trapped inside a failing club, and a club that is wholly unsuited for Britain assuming its proper place on the global trading stage. Well, given all of this, what of the no side? Well, they've gone to ground. Those who, in some cases, have been calling for 20 years for a fundamental change in Britain's relationship with the European Union have decided to stand aside, to wait and see, not to snipe at the Prime Minister, and to wish him well with his renegotiations. Well, I have to say that the no side needs to set the agenda for this renegotiation, because as an extensive opinion poll, which is being published as I speak, shows, the public priorities for this renegotiation are completely different to the ones that David Cameron has set. The overwhelming major point that the British public want to see renegotiated is, of course, the question of open borders. And is it any wonder, as we see the scenes at Calais every evening and every day, is it any wonder as we realise that the European Union's common asylum policy is directly bringing the results that I predicted when I spoke in Strasbourg on the 16th of April this year during the general election campaign. I was pretty much ignored by everybody then, but the fact is the EU's common asylum policy means that limitless numbers of people can come onto the continent. Now, of course, the yes side will say, but that's okay, because Britain is not opted into this scheme. But actually, the Italians, the Greeks and the French have a very neat way out of this. All the French authorities need to do at Calais is to grant asylum status to all 5,000 people there, give them French passports, and then they can come to the United Kingdom without having to climb onto the back of a truck. So we do need to discuss free movement of people. And we do need to discuss, in the old days, 40 years ago, it was called sovereignty, but we'll ditch that word as nobody gets it. But let's call it the supremacy of Parliament. Let's call it the ability of the British people to make their own laws. Let's call it our ability to have a veto over EU law, be that by our Parliament or be it by our courts. The British people care about that, and Mr Cameron will not be discussing that in his renegotiation. And the other issue that is uppermost in the minds of the British people as they view this renegotiation, but not even being discussed in Westminster, is the cost of membership. The fact that being a member of the EU in these straitened times is really rather expensive. So what we have to do at every EU summit is we have to be out there making those arguments and showing Cameron's renegotiation to be nothing more than hollow. Quite why these Eurosceptics in the Conservative Party have decided to say and do nothing, I don't know, and perhaps in many ways I shouldn't be surprised. My own faith in conservative Euroscepticism collapsed at the time of the Maastricht Treaty, when frankly those that had campaigned against it were too gutless to stand up against John Major. But given that we face the political opportunity of a generation, it is hopeless, to quote my colleague Mark Reckless, it is hopeless in a marathon race to the line in this referendum to give the Prime Minister and the yes side a 13-mile start. And even worse than that, there are some now amongst the Conservative Eurosceptic group who are urging a two-referendum strategy. They're beginning to make the argument that if we vote no in the first referendum, that is just a means by which we can renegotiate a better deal for Britain. Well, frankly, I view that as a counsel of despair and defeatism. It means that even if we did vote no in the referendum, the second referendum would be used as a means of keeping us in. And the message must be clear. No means no. That's what this referendum's about. We don't want to be like Denmark or the Irish and forced to vote again. We don't want to be like France or the Netherlands or Greece, where our referendum results are frankly just completely ignored. The British public deserve better. They deserve a simple, clear proposition. And in the absence of anybody else, UKIP is going to take the lead in this country, and we are going to launch in September a major ground campaign. We're going to launch in the first week of September the biggest public outreach programme this party has ever attempted. And we do it because, yes, we want our country back. We genuinely believe that the best people to govern Britain are the British people themselves. We're frankly not interested in a technical renegotiation of some of our terms of membership. And we'll do this, and we'll fight this campaign, confident in knowing that you don't need to be a member of the European Union in order to buy and sell widgets from each other. Goodness me, there are countries all over the world that trade with Europe without being members of that union. And any such renegotiation we can enter into with the absolute confidence that the United Kingdom is now the Eurozone's biggest export market in the world. It's in their interests to negotiate a quick trade deal even more than it is in theirs. And I quote Lord Digby Jones, the former Labour Trade Minister, who said Britain could have a free trade deal with the EU, signed and sealed within 24 hours. The German car manufacturing industry would demand nothing less. And we'll make the arguments that only by being free of this desperately out-of-date customs union will we be freed and able to negotiate our own global trade deals. It's very interesting. In fact, I'm really rather tired of listening to leading politicians from the Liberal Democrat, Labour and Conservative parties who too often tell us that the United Kingdom is not big enough to negotiate its own terms on the world stage. What they mean, ladies and gentlemen, what they mean is we're not good enough. They don't think we're good enough to stand on our own 2 feet and negotiate our own trade deals. Well, Iceland, with a population of 1/3 has just negotiated its own free trade deal with China. And I think if Iceland can do it, I'm damn certain that Britain can do it. And unlike all the others, we in UKIP do believe that Britain is good enough. We believe in our country's ability to stand on our own 2 feet. But important though all of those points are, about trade, about business, about excessive regulation, about the drawbacks of being stuck in a customs union, the only way we can win this referendum is if we have the courage to campaign on the issues that people really care about. We have to show the British public clearly and unequivocally that as a member of the European Union, we cannot control our borders, we cannot be in control of our own immigration policy, and we will do that as a political party that is not opposed to immigration, actually as a political party that believes we could have good, positive immigration into this country by adopting the Australian-style point system. It's something that would receive overwhelming support in this country, but it's something we cannot do as members of the European Union. And we have to tell people the truth about the extent to which we've lost the ability to govern ourselves. We have to explain to the British people that actually over half of the laws that are made in Britain every single year are not made by the men and women who are sent to Westminster after each general election, and that the others quite deliberately have tried not to tell us the truth. And we have to explain to people that there's absolutely no need to send £55 million a day to an organisation whose accounts have not been signed off for the last 19 years in a row, that we don't need to do it, and that we have far more important economic priorities at home than sending this money to Brussels. We must challenge the Cameron government renegotiation at every single step. So we will, as I've said earlier, in the first week of September, launch our biggest ever public campaign. We are going to hold literally hundreds of public meetings up and down this country. We'll do it, and I believe by going out there and taking the message to ordinary people, we will mobilise a people's army against the Westminster elites and their friends in corporate business. We'll do it confident that the United Kingdom not only can govern herself, but should govern herself. We'll do it believing that actually the risks of remaining a member of the European Union are now far greater than the risks of standing on our own 2 feet and charting our own course in the world. UKIP will lead this ground campaign in the country, but that is not the same as saying that this is some dramatic bid by me or the others in this room to think that UKIP will get the official designation for the No campaign. We won't, and we won't be applying. What we will do is play our part in this campaign. At the moment, there are 2 competing bodies, one very much a Westminster club, one very much an outside the Westminster club. There's merit in what both of those organisations are trying to do. We as a party, after this party conference, will make our minds up which one of those teams we will back. Although privately I have to say, I hope, given that I can see there's talent in both of those teams, that actually there will be a coming together. And I want to make this clear, I will and we will share platforms, work and campaign with anybody out there in the Eurosceptic movement. You'll hear no negativity from us once they've got off their backsides and decided to join this fight. We cannot allow Cameron to go into this renegotiation unchallenged. We cannot allow the yes side to have the massive head start that they've got in the polls and in the general campaign in the country. And I would say to Eurosceptics of every hue in Britain, we're going to be out there from the 1st of September. Come and join us. Thank you.